first question or challenge for the panel, if you will. And go ahead and migrate to the next chart. And basically what this is designed to do is talk about this thing we know as the knowledge economy. So specifically, the question posed to the panel, has the knowledge economy impacted the way individuals and organizations use and manage knowledge? And our first stuckey, if you will, is Dr. Dave Kirsch.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an obvious one. For those who haven't caught up yet, the industrial age is dead. So we're here in the knowledge age and working inside the knowledge economy. Probably one of the biggest things that I think is a good point for how this works is perhaps another way to look at defining knowledge management. I like to think of it as possibly managing our uniqueness. The only thing that makes any organization in this day and age is its organizational knowledge, the knowledge that the people have. And so at the end of the day, if you have not done something with that inside of our knowledge economy, then what have you got left? So if IT is your game strategy, at the end of the day, you have no strategy. And if you think you can't manage knowledge, then you're not using your unique knowledge, and unique knowledge takes us to innovation, and we're all probably familiar with innovate or die. So I think that's where we are. We have to be innovative in this current age that we're in, or we don't survive long.
Mr. Moore?
Well, the short answer is yes, it has, absolutely. And in our organization, which one of our three basic missions is to develop leaders. I mean, we develop leaders by conveying knowledge into their brains so they can use it to lead people and soldiers and to do certain things for the nation. And so the knowledge economy has impacted that to a great degree. I'd have to say at this point, it's really done it more informally than where I want to take it, which is a more institutionalized approach that looks at industrial age processes that we still have to live inside the Army and bring those processes to the 21st century. And I'll use actually a personal example to make that point. I was trying to teach my 10-year-old son how to change a tire a few months ago. And basically about halfway through it, he was getting pretty bored. Because kids get real bored when you try to teach them things like that. And he looked at me and he's like, "Dad, can't I just pull down the app for that if I ever need to change the tire?" And I was like, "No, son, you'll be in an area that doesn't have coverage." He didn't buy that. But I mean, it's that learning at the point of need thing that I think we can better incorporate. And I look at our programs of instruction, which is how we set up our courses and teach. I mean, we have over 500 courses that we teach within the CASCOM organizations and schools. And each of those POIs is based on what we think the critical learning objectives need to be for those soldiers or civilians. And I got to bring that into the 21st century. What can we deliver to them in their duty station versus what we need to deliver to them in the schoolhouse. So it's a big challenge, and it takes a lot of time and effort to re-engineer that, but that's where I want us to go. So back to the question, it has impacted it. I think it is just scratching the surface of how it could impact it and revolutionize how we do what we do.
Dr. Stankowski?
Well, I'm going to take a different approach here. I don't think we know what we're doing in a knowledge-based economy. I've been at this for 14 years. Actually, I've been at it a lifetime because a knowledge-based economy is nothing new. We just never gave it that name. But I was up at Microsoft many years ago with Tom Davenport and Buckman from Buckman Labs, and I had 125 executives in front of me, and I asked, if I came into your office tomorrow and looked at your assets that you use to manage your company, would you give me a list? Now, these are pretty senior executives responsible by law, by every known morality on the planet to get return on assets. And not one had a clue as to what I was talking about. Not one had an inventory. If I go into the office today, they still don't. And we just don't know how to manage knowledge because we don't know what knowledge is. And we still think it's people. I remember this morning someone said that technology is all about technology, and they said, no, it ain't. Well, it is all about technology. I remember a long time ago someone said, KM in the early days, and this was the first CKO in the government, that KM was about people, process, and technology, and people were the most important thing. And I said, Shireen, you're kidding me. How could that happen? I said, let me take away your technology and see how important people will be. Let me take away the reservation system for Delta. And they're out of business. They're all equally important. We just don't know how to balance them all and weave them together. We always have a tendency to criticize one amongst the critical elements. It's like me asking you what's more important, your heart system or your nervous system. We don't use a systems approach in the way we do things. We're in a knowledge-based economy. What does that mean? A lot of people don't know it. I just came from Russia. They're trying to create a knowledge-based economy, switch from a carbon-based economy. But they don't know what they're doing. They're doing it, but they don't know what they're doing. We're all here doing it, but we do not know what we're doing. What is a knowledge-based economy? Well, we have a GDP of $14.7 trillion. Staggering. I don't even know how to calculate that like a nanosecond. 80% of our output is produced by knowledge. It's raw material for the 21st century. I have a Urano. I didn't pay $40,000 for it. It has more software in it than the shuttle that went to the moon. 65% of the cost of that car is nothing but knowledge assets. So I don't think we really have a clue yet. Look at all of our experts from Washington. We're still running our macroeconomic models on an industrial-based model. We don't get it. I was in the Marine Corps for 26 years. We had knowledge. That's how we used in the Marine Corps. We're always borrowing stuff and stealing it from the Army to prosecute a war. But our knowledge got us ahead of the game. So I honestly don't think we get it today. I wish Tom Stewart's book was a bestseller. If you know Tom, he's one of the pioneers. He used to do the management thing in Fortune. He was at Harvard. He's now over at Booz Allen making the Fortune. But he wrote a book called The Wealth of Knowledge. And he was very emphatic that knowledge is your personal organizational wealth. National wealth, but we don't know what it is. We don't have a name for it. We're doing risk management without evaluation. Someone asked me a couple of years ago, Mike, the government's going to lose 50% of the workforce by the year, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? I had no clue. Trash could be walking out the door. Until you give something a name and value it, you can't do risk management. You can't return on your assets in a company. So I'll just leave that as openers. I don't want to become that professor who gets paid for words even after lunch. So I'll just leave that as a teaser and we'll move on.
They're all still laughing. They're laughing.
Ms. Huber?
All right, thank you. So yes, it has changed. But I think, I'm going to build on something a gentleman said from the earlier session. He was talking about information overload. And I just think the fact that we do live in an age where we are overwhelmed with the amount of information that we can access or that gets pushed to us. And you have RSS feeds coming at you every day. You signed up for it, the problem is that. And it gets to be overwhelming. So I think that because of the notion that knowledge has a higher value than information, you can't have knowledge without information. But it has a higher value, heightens our awareness of what needs to happen with our knowledge. And I agree with the rest of this panel. I think we're still in the middle of a transformation and not exactly knowing how to deal with all the things that are required to manage this asset called knowledge. So if you go back to the definition we used in the earlier session, if information is knowledge, and I had a discussion with Colonel Sutton, so unless people take the information and use it, really think about what use means. Does it mean a decision is made? Does it mean an improvement happens? Does it mean there's a course correction? Until that happens, it isn't knowledge. And we had a debate over lunch about just the types of knowledge, because I mentioned this morning there's explicit and tacit, and APQC just tends to classify knowledge in those two buckets. Recognizing in our research that the tacit has been the one that appears to be much more valuable because it's what people know, who they know, their relationships, as Mike said earlier. But the explicit is important too. So you've got to have both of those, and I think that's where, in our knowledge economy, we're still thinking about how we manage. People are, if you haven't seen a PBS special called Public Broadcast System, special called Digital Nation, it was phenomenal. We saw it last year, or years, 18 months ago, and literally had to stop every 2 minutes to think about what it was saying, because it's talking about the immersion that we have with digital, that most people have 4 to 5 to 6 screens in front of them every day. I walked down the hall earlier and I told Pat, I said, we're supposed to be at a conference networking and talking, and everyone is behind their computer. And again, it gets back to, it may be a necessity. Work these days is a 24-hour job, and it doesn't go away. Maybe it never did before either, but we just didn't recognize it as always being connected. And our generation that's coming up has always been connected. They don't know what it means. And so I think skills like, to help us deal with how we manage and think about knowledge, is we're going to need a different skill set around critical thinking, analytics, talking about Tom Davenport. All the analytics work that's being on, teaching people how to really understand and look at information and make sense of it, and then know that it's going to change in the very next moment.
Thank you. Okay.